Hi, I'm Heidi and welcome to Learn Finnish with me. In this video, I'm going to tell you about one Finnish poem that was written by a famous Finnish author. It's closely connected to the history of Finland and how the lives of the Finns were in the 19th century. But first, I will give you a little bit of historical background so you can understand this better and why I chose to speak about this poem. The 19th century was a time of the rise of nationalism across Europe, and Finland was no exception in this. In Finland, writers like J.L. Runeberg, J.V. Snellman, and Elias Lönnrot helped to define the unique Finnish identity. They were part of this nationalist movement, which also helped to shape the Finnish language. For the first time in history, people started to question in public and in writing what it actually means to be a Finn. At that time, Finland was still part of the Great Russian Empire, and earlier Finland had been part of Sweden. So Finland never had been an independent state in modern terms. But people started to realize that we speak a different language. We are no longer part of Sweden, we are not Swedes, but we have not really integrated into Russia, and we have our autonomy, and we are not really Russians either, and we will never become Russians. Thanks to the fact that people started to question their national identity and also the importance of their native language, more and more authors decided to write in Finnish and create pieces of art in the Finnish language. Most of these people were bilingual. They spoke both Swedish and Finnish, or Swedish was their mother tongue, but they learned Finnish to be able to express themselves fluently in Finnish. J.L. Runeberg was one of our most appreciated authors who was part of this nationalist movement and who we celebrate every 5th of February by eating Runebergin torttu. They were not actually baked by him, but by his wife. They are delicious. You should try. Anyways, back to our topic. He wrote a poem, Saarijärven Paavo, which tells about the difficulties of people in the 19th century. But it also highlights the resilience of the Finns. And this is something that resonated with a lot of people. The poem is about a resilient farmer who doesn't give up even when he's facing repeated crop failures and famine. It's good to remember that at that time Finland was a very agricultural country. Most of our population still lived in the countryside, and experiencing hunger was fairly common. This poem was one of those that became the symbol of Finnish resilience, or sisu, that is still very commonly known nowadays, that resilience that goes through even a solid rock, as we say in Finnish. Let's enjoy this piece of art together. You can see the translations also on the screen when I'll start reading, so you can follow along. At the end, I will also explain some of the key vocabulary which is still used nowadays. It's good to remember that this poem is more than 100 years old, so the language has changed quite a lot since then. And there are many forms that are not used anymore, or they are extremely rare or regional. The poem is still understandable for modern Finns, but to be honest, even I had to Google a few words because they are not really used anymore. They are old, really old words that have fallen out of use. Saarijärven Paavo. Saarijärvi is a place in Finland. Literally, it means the lake island. So Paavo of the lake island. But normally we don't translate Saarijärvi since it's a proper name. Tuolla Saarijärven salomailla asui Paavo maalla hallaisella. Kynti maata, kaivoi ahkerasti, mutta Herralta tuloa toivoi, taivahasta, luonnon tekijältä. Siinäpä asui siivoin lapsinensa, vaimoinensa, vaivoin leipäpalan hiellänsä otti kankahasta. Tuli kevät, suli kinos mailta, veipä puolen orahia, tuli kesä, kävi raet mailla, kaasi päitä puolet käydessänsä. Tuli syksy, veipä Halla kaikki. Tarttui tukkahansa Paavon vaimo, sanoi, Paavo parka poloseni, ota sauva, hylkäs meidät Herra. Kolkkomiero, nälkä kauheampi. Sanoi Paavo häntä suositellen. Vaikka kokee, eipä hylkää Herra. Pane leipään puoli petäjätä, minä laitan ojat leveämmät, mutta tulon toivon taivahasta. Pani vaimo puolet petäjätä, kaivoi äijä 2 viemäreitä. Vaihtoi vuonat siemeniksi, kylvi. Tuli kevät, suli kinosmailta. Eipä vienyt vesi orahia. Tuli kesä, kävi raet mailla. Kaasi päitä puolen käydessänsä. Tuli syksy, veipä vilu kaikki. Löipä rintoihinsa Paavon vaimo, sanoi, Paavo parka poloseni, kuollaan pois, jo Herra meidät hylkäs. Kova kuolla, mutta turha toivo. Sanoi Paavo häntä suositellen, vaikka kokee, eipä hylkää Herra. Pane 2 verroin petäjätä, 2 kerroin laitan lannan maalle, mutta tulon toivon taivahasta. Lisäs vaimo 2 petäjätä, laittoi Paavo lannan 2 kerroin. Käänti karjan siemeneksi, kylvi. Tuli kevät, suli kinosmaalta, eipä vienyt vesi orahia. Tuli kesä, kävi raet mailla, eipä kaatunutkaan kaunis olki. Tuli syksy, sivu sitkaimitten, meni vilun vaino vaarallinen, aivan koskematta kultapäihin. Silloin heti Paavo hartahasti paneusi polvilleen ja sanoi, vaikka kokee, eipä hylkää Herra. Sanoi vaimo samoin polvillansa, vaikka kokee, eipä hylkää Herra. Sitten iloitellen miehellensä, Paavo, ota sirppi sukkelasti, toki nyt on tullut toinen aika, ilon aika. Pois nyt petäjäinen, ruisleivän laitan lapsillemme. Paavo sanoi häntä hyväillen, vaimo, vaimo, sit ei kuri saada, jok ei hylkää toista hädässänsä. Pane leipään puoli petäjätä, vei hän vilu touon naapurimme. Katsotaan nyt yhdessä vähän sanastoa. Let's see now some vocabulary together. Halla was mentioned many times in this poem. Halla means frost, and hallainen means frosty. Even more specifically, halla refers to a situation where the temperature in the vegetation layer of the ground drops so low during the growing season that plants, especially crops or harvests, are damaged or destroyed. In Finnish condition, this means freezing temperatures below 0 degrees Celsius. And the poem said, asui Paavo maalla hallaisella, meaning Paavo lived in a frosty land. You can see that the word order is also different from the most normal word order that we have. Normally we would have the subject first and then the verb. We would say Paavo asui hallaisella maalla. So when we have this kind of reversed word order, especially when we say maalla hallaisella instead of hallaisella maalla, this sounds very poetic. It's a very poetic feature, I would say. So these kind of changes in word order sometimes could be used in poems, in songs, and in more creative style of writing. But this is not how we would commonly say it. So the normal order would be Paavo asui hallaisella maalla. Kyntää means to plow, kaivaa, to dig, and ahkerasti, diligently. In the poem, it was said that hän kynti maata, kaivoi ahkerasti. He plowed the land, he digged diligently. Herra, was also mentioned many times, meaning Lord. Sometimes Herra means Mr., but also it can mean Lord. And in this poem, it clearly refers to the Lord, to God. And the poem said, mutta Herralta tuloa toivoi. But he waited for the Lord to come. Meaning that the farmer was waiting for some help from the Lord because it was really difficult to grow the crop and it depended heavily on the nature and on the natural conditions and whether he would succeed or not. So he hoped that the Lord would be on his side and give good weather. Toivoa often goes together with LTA or LTÄ, to hope or to wish from someone. And that's why we say Herralta tuloa toivoi. Again, the word order is a bit strange. Normally we would say hän toivoi Herralta tuloa. And still that even sounds a bit old-fashioned. Because normally we would just say hän toivoi, että Herra auttaa, or something like that. Sulaa, to melt, kinos, snowdrift. Tuli kevät, suli kinos maalta. The spring came, the snowdrift melted from the land. Rae, rakeet. This means hail, and in Finnish we can have yksi rae, one hail, or we could have rakeet in plural, like kind of saying hails. I think in English you never use hails as a plural. It would be something uncountable like rain. You don't say really rains either, right? So that's why I put it between the brackets. But in Finnish we can use it in plural as well. Runeberg said, kävi raet mailla. And this is not how we would say it in modern Finnish. So I've also added the modern Finnish version here. We would say kävi rakeet mailla. For some reason, Runeberg doesn't use rakeet as the plural, although that would be standard form nowadays. And you can see that there's KPT as well, so astevaihtelu here. So the strong form would be rakeet, but for some reason Runeberg doesn't use it. It looks like the language has changed quite a lot since then. Petäjä means pine tree, or in this poem it means the pine tree bark. Runeberg says, pane leipään puoli petäjätä. In standard modern Finnish we could say, pane leipään puolet petäjää, which would mean make half of the bread with pine tree bark. Make half of the bread with pine tree bark. And that was something that people had to do in those really bad years when the crops failed and they were lacking food. They had to actually use pine tree bark in Finland to replace part of the flowers and to be able to eat something. As you know, well, it's not something people normally eat. It's really one of the last resources of survival that we could use up north here, like more than 100 years ago. And well, even after that, in the beginning of the 20th century, Finland was still very poor and not really industrialized. So sometimes we had to resort to some real extreme means. Vilu, cold. Veipä vilu kaikki. In modern Finnish we could also say vilu vei kaiken or kylmyys vei kaiken. This would be the normal sentence nowadays. Normally we would say kylmyys vei kaiken. Vilu is not such a common word. I would think this is like C1 or C2 vocabulary actually. Oras, oraat, meaning sprout or the shoots of cereal or cultivated hay. A very specific word, but very much related to agriculture as that was our main means of living at that time. Runeberg says, veipä puolen orahia. And in standard modern Finnish, we could say veipä puolet oraita. Orahia is an old form or a form that is used only in dialect, and the standard form would be oraita, meaning it took half of the sprouts. And this referred to a coldness. Hylätä. Vartalo hylkää. This means to abandon or to forsake. And you can see that the stem is different. There's KPT or consonant gradation here. We need the strong stem with this. Hylkäs meidät Herra is what Runeberg says. And in standard Finnish we would say Herra hylkäsi meidät. As you can see, the word order here is a bit strange, very poetic. So it works in a poem, especially in an older poem. But if you say this, you would sound nowadays very old-fashioned. So the normal word order would be the second one. I hope you learned something new with this video about Finland and about Finnish. What do you think about this poem? Who are the most valued authors of your country? Or your favorite authors of your country? Let me know in the comments.